Welcome to the Animation Podcast, a weekly podcast about all things animation brought to you by FilmBook. My name is Matt Brunet, but some of you may know me as Animat from my YouTube channel, Electric Dragon 505, home of web series that are all about animation, including Animation Look Back and Animat's Reviews. If this is your first time here in the Animation Podcast, well, the title will go and explain everything for you. You see, this podcast here is no ordinary podcast. This is a podcast in which it talks about animation. Now, you might be wondering, well, there are a lot of podcasts that talks about animation. What makes this one different? Well, the difference is that you get to hear my voice. That's pretty much it. But specifically, though, this podcast would talk about the latest news that happened this week. So for starters, we will be looking upon the Lion King remake that apparently is going to happen. Then afterwards, we will be talking about the end of Adventure Time. Then afterwards, we will be taking a look into the announcement, basically, of Pixar's brand new animated short called Lou. Then afterwards, we will be looking into a live-action series about Inspector Zenigata. And finally, we will end things off with Matt's Pick of the Week. If you want to check out more episodes of the Animation Podcast, then head on down to FilmBook, that is film-book.com, by searching the Animation Podcast. You can also email us at podcast@filmbook.com with the Animation Podcast in the subject line. Now, the first thing that I want to mention, however, before we get into all these stories, you may have noticed that this podcast started out a little bit differently than usual. The little jingle at the beginning is not the usual one that sounds like a sports cast or like some kind of news thing or whatever. It's a little bit special. Well, I decided to do something extraordinary this time because we have officially reached the 50th episode of the Animation Podcast. Yes, it has officially been 50 episodes in which you just sit there and listen to me blabber the fridge about animation. I know it's already been there. Like, I'm honestly really surprised myself. So what I decided to do on this special occasion, I wanted to switch both the intro and the outro. That little jingle. It's just some royalty-free crap that I took somewhere and decided to place it in, whatever. But I want to try to give it a special little voice for this little podcast right here. So what I decided to do, I decided to take the rock cover of the song Powerhouse that is played by Chris Holland. And by the way, just a little trivia about this little jingle right here is that this is the same song that was used in the Angry Video Game Nerd episode of, I believe, Bugs Bunny's Birthday Blowout. And by the way, I did ask Chris if I can use his song for the podcast, and he actually said yes. He gave me the go, simple as that. And, you know, honestly, I was really surprised, but what do you know? Chris Holland is actually a really nice guy, and I thought I might as well just give him a shout out. If you guys want to go and you want to check out some rock covers on numerous like TV show songs or movie songs, or even some of his works that he has done with the Angry Video Game Nerd. He has done plenty of music. Just looking at this right here, he has already done some rock covers or some metal covers for Batman, Battletoads and Double Dragon, Super Castlevania 4, Simon's Theme, and so much more. All you have to do is go on YouTube and just check him out, Chris Holland. So that's all it is, and I just want to say, Chris, thank you very much, and don't worry, I shall use your song to its full potential in this podcast. Okay, now that we got out of the way, let's get things started. And the first story that I have for you today is something in which that it's actually the biggest story of this week that actually had people both very surprised and not surprised at the same time. It was the kind of story that we all looked at it and we were just thinking, what? Like, are you for real, Disney? But then again, people also looked at this and thought, well, that's actually not surprising. Because of course Disney would do something like that. And what I am referring to is about The Lion King. Now, of course, if you're listening to this, then I am guaranteed for a fact that you have seen The Lion King before. You know the songs, you know the story. It's a legendary masterpiece in animation. One of the most popular and most beloved animated films that has ever been made, either ever or just by Disney. But still, everybody knows about The Lion King. It's one of those movies that basically, by social law, you gotta know what The Lion King is. Like, you will be hunted down in a public area if you don't know any of the songs like The Circle of Life, or if you don't know what Hakuna Matata means. But what I am referring to is apparently Disney wants to go and make a live-action reboot to The Lion King. Yes, we all know about Disney's ever-growing giant pile of movies that they took from their animated classics and decided to turn them into this big budgeted live action reboot. They've previously done so with movies like Alice in Wonderland, Sleeping Beauty with Maleficent. They did it with Cinderella, and just recently they have done it with The Jungle Book, which was a huge success, almost made $1 billion. They did it once again with Alice in Wonderland, with Alice Through the Looking Glass, which is the worst one of them all. And then they also did it with Pete's Dragon without actually doing it based on Pete's Dragon, funny enough. But so far they have announced this, and that's all it is. It's just an announcement. There are only 3 things in which we can confirm about what they're doing with it. Number 1 is that this is Disney's top priority. Going into my source here on Deadline, it states, the film is being fast-tracked to production, although no dates has been disclosed. And so we know that they want to go and get it out as soon as possible. So from what I'm predicting is that there's a very high chance we'll be expecting a 2020 release at the latest. I want to say 2019, but that would be a little too soon, considering that we are closing in at the end of 2016. Well, at least as I'm recording this. Number 2 is that we actually do have a director. They are bringing back Jon Favreau, considering that he has done a phenomenal job both critically and financially with his remake of The Jungle Book. They decided why not, they're going to bring him back once again to go and work on The Lion King. I guess he'll do that simultaneously as he is going to work on the sequel to The Jungle Book, which apparently they're going to make as well, which honestly is equally as confusing. Like, I understand the reboot of The Jungle Book, but why make a sequel to that? But then, the third thing also that we can confirm is apparently going back into my source here. Disney's latest reimagining is the upcoming Beauty and the Beast. In similar fashion to that film, the live-action Lion King will include songs from the original animated pick. So those are the 3 things that we can confirm so far, is that this is Disney's top priority, and we could probably be seeing it pretty soon in the next few years. Jon Favreau is going to be attached to it, and that there is going to be, and that the movie is going to be a musical. And pretty much it confused everybody. I don't know if I've seen people who are as excited, but actually, no, there are a few that are pretty positive. I wouldn't say that, oh my god, I wouldn't say people are like, oh my god, this movie is gonna be amazing, this is the greatest news that I've ever heard in a long time. No, that's not necessarily the case. Like, it confused people, and sometimes it charmed people. That's basically the whole gist of it. Even I was pretty confused. Like, a friend of mine actually messaged me about this, and I was like, what the fridge? It's like, I look at Disney, and I'm like, really? And I decided to give a bit of thought into this news, and I could see it in both ways, how this idea could work, and how this idea could not work. So let me just begin with the ideas that basically do not work. Now, going back into the different live-action reboots that Disney has done, even though that technically we are just starting they have not necessarily have the best track record. And I think 2016 kind of proves it, where we got 3 of them, and only one out of the 3 came out on top. That came out memorable. That actually came out as good. The rest, well, they're pretty much either forgettable or absolutely stupid. And I think the biggest damage that we have seen are the ones that were written by Linda Wolverton. I'm talking about the 2010 Alice in Wonderland, and by the way, yes, I technically do count that because that's the one that started this entire trend, considering that it has made $1 billion at the box office. There was also Maleficent, and then there was also the recent Alice Through the Looking Glass. And all 3 of them have in common, and that's why I mentioned Linda Wolverton, because she wrote all 3 of them. And the worst thing about these movies is the writing. It's just absolutely stupid. It is confusing, and you can tell how it absolutely forces in this message of pro-feminism, which absolutely does not work, and it actually makes the movie a lot more weaker. So overall, like, she used to be a good writer with The Lion King actually, and Beauty and the Beast, but then she started to change, and somehow I guess she went crazy and she wrote these disasters. And even nowadays, Disney is looking at them and, like, they want to forget Maleficent, but they don't necessarily, they're not going to forget Alice in Wonderland, but you could tell that for now they definitely prefer the animated feature than that. And, like, if The Lion King comes out as equally bad as those films, then we're gonna be in trouble. Like, and honestly, looking into it, you know, it's like the Beauty and the Beast reboot that's coming in next year. Because the thing is, okay, it's fine if you're gonna go and remake movies like Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty or even The Jungle Book. Those are movies in which people are going to look back and say, technically those aren't perfect animated features, but you know what, they're still animated classics and they're still great films regardless. Like, they're great movies, but they do acknowledge that they're not the best ones. They do have a little bit of flaws. So that's why people are more okay that they would take those films and they would remake it. The Lion King, on the other hand, along with Beauty and the Beast, we're talking about animated masterpieces. These are some of the closest things that you would find to a perfect animated film. These are something that is pretty much in everybody's conscious mind, and we all remember them by how phenomenal that they have. That's pretty much how it's been made. We all remember the story. We all remember the lovable characters. We all remember the innovative animation that they pulled off. And we all remember the songs. Oh, absolutely, we all know the songs. Name me one it's pretty rare to find someone who cannot sing any Lion King song or even a Beauty and the Beast song. Basically looking into this, why go fix something that isn't broken? Why not just leave The Lion King as it is? You don't have to make another one, because there's an extremely high chance, more than 95%, that it will not be as good as the original. And that's basically the biggest issue with it, is that we're talking about one of Disney's best animated films. How can you go and top that with a live-action reboot? And speaking of which, considering that they are going to make this as a live-action reboot, what kind of direction are they going with it? That one is still remained a mystery, because when you look back into all the other live-action reboots that Disney has made, they all feature people. These are movies that feature people or human-like creatures like fairies and stuff like that. The Lion King holds absolutely 0 humans. How the fridge are you going to do that? Are you going to go and do a Walking with Dinosaurs style animated feature where you're going to film the backgrounds like real life, where you're going to go in Africa and you're going to take pictures of the savannah and you're going to take these wonderful shots and you're going to go and make these highly realistic looking lions and a warthog and a meerkat and hyenas and all that kind of stuff? Or are you going to include some people into it? Are you going to make it loosely based on the movie, like how The Lion King is loosely based on Hamlet, and you're going to find a way to include people into it? Or are you going to change the cast to have actual human characters? Like, what's the direction here? You can't just announce that you're going to make a live-action reboot of The Lion King. It's one of the... Like, The Lion King is one of those movies that's made for animation. You know, like, like, how are you going to go around that? But then again, those are the bad ideas. Like, this is why The Lion King might not be good. But at the same time, there are some things also that it could actually work out. This could actually be a pretty good idea, and we might actually come out with, at the very least, a worthy success, or not a worthy successor, but something worthy enough to be a remake of The Lion King that society will be accepting to this, like how they were with The Jungle Book. And speaking of which, that's pretty much why, because they're bringing in Jon Favreau onto the scene. And Jon Favreau was the director of The Jungle Book, which is hands down and almost undeniably the best, the best live-action reboot that Disney has made. It was the one movie that is almost on par, almost as good as the animated film it was based on. So Jon Favreau, you could definitely tell this guy highly respects the source material, and that is something that is completely lacking in all of the other movies, whether it be Alice in Wonderland or Maleficent or Pete's Dragon. I wouldn't necessarily count Cinderella. That one, well, it's faithful to the original story that it's based on. So, okay, so yeah, those three movies, like The Jungle Book actually pays respect. It knows what it's based on, and it wants to pay homage to it. It wants to say thank you. So at the very least, we know that Jon Favreau is someone that this movie will be in good hands with. Even though he will be busy, like I said before, this isn't the only project that he has working on. I mean, this is just at Disney alone that he has those projects with The Jungle Book 2 and now The Lion King. And on top of that, like, he also has some Marvel projects as well. Apparently, he's going to be the executive producer of the Infinity War movies. And also, this is not mentioning some of the other stuff outside of Disney. Apparently, he's going to be he's going to direct one episode for a Seth MacFarlane project, and also he's going to be making an appearance in Spider-Man Homecoming. But regardless, at the very least, we could be confident that it will be in the hands of Jon Favreau, and maybe the guy would like The Lion King as much as The Jungle Book. And even at that, you know what could be good, what could be a bit beneficial is that he could go and work with the people who have actually worked on it. With The Jungle Book, we're talking about a 50-year-old animated film, so most of the people who actually did work on it, most of them have actually passed away, other than, like, Floyd Norman, and that's it. With The Jungle Book, with The Lion King, he could still go back and he could talk with the people who did work on it. You know, like, he'll talk with Rob Minkoff, he'll talk with Elton John and Tim Rice. He'll talk with the people that did work on The Lion King, and, you know, they can actually aid him to go and make something resourceful. They'll go and make something that does pay homage, that highly respects The Lion King. That could be a good idea. And on top of that, this is not even mentioning the actors. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a cameo with Matthew Broderick, Nathan Lane, Jeremy Irons, Roman Atkinson, all those people. Maybe they'll make a special appearance onto The Lion King, and maybe, who knows, like, they can actually bring in some people who were in the original film to reprise their role for this. Sounds crazy, but there could be a chance. And you know what's actually really funny about this? You know what's funny about this entire situation is that so many people are confused regarding this project. They're looking at it like, what? Why are they doing this? And, like, everybody is just so unsure about the idea of rebooting The Lion King as this big budgeted live action film. You know what's actually really funny about this? Is that technically, we were all having the exact same discussion 20 years ago. If you guys remember back, this was back in the day when The Lion King was fresh out of theaters, and it was absolutely huge. Well, like, even though today you can argue that it is still huge, but like back then, it was like fresh, it was new, it was the Frozen of its time. And then they actually announced that they are going to make a Broadway musical based on The Lion King. And everybody, including the people who made the film, were looking at this going, what the fridge? I mean, never mind the fact about, bringing The Lion King into a live-action, big-budgeted feature film. Like, there are many ways that you can do it. But bringing The Lion King, this animated film that features nothing but realistic-looking animals, into onto live on stage. How the fridge is that possible? Are they going to do it like Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats? Or like, it was absolutely confusing and people lost their minds. They don't know how this would actually come out. But I'll tell you how it came out. Nowadays, The Lion King is one of the most beloved and longest running Broadway shows of all time. It was highly acclaimed. It was absolutely innovative with its use of puppetry and bringing an animated film like The Lion King onto the stage. It was absolutely gorgeous. I remember watching it, and it was absolutely fantastic, and it was in fact, I would even say that it's one of, if not the most beautiful Broadway show I have ever seen, next to The Phantom of the Opera, or even more. You know what? Okay, screw it. I'm gonna say it. It's the most beautiful Broadway show I have ever seen. It is glorious. So maybe it's going to be the same way with this. In fact, that would actually be a pretty crazy idea. That would actually be pretty cool if they would actually do something like the Broadway show and bring it to the big screen, where it's actually, instead of using like CGI animals and stuff like that, they would actually go and bring in human characters. They would actually have people, and maybe they could dress themselves up, like they would have these masks on top of their heads. It could be, that could be an interesting idea. They can technically have it be based more on the Broadway show than actually doing it based on the animated film. It's actually very interesting. But then again, we don't know the direction with what they want to do with it. We only know about the three things: that it's Disney's top priority, Jon Favreau is directing it, and that it'll be a musical, that they're going to bring the songs back onto the big screen. And a lot of people seem to be confused. They don't know what the direction is going to be. And then, of course, on Cartoon Brew, you got crazy old Amida Mitty, like, flipping out over everyone, getting mad over the fact that everybody's saying it's a live-action reboot, and he's just there like, no, it's not going to be a live-action reboot, it's an animated film, it's going to be animated because they're going to use CGI lions. The Jungle Book is an animated film after all. Everybody's wrong, and I am right. Okay, guys, calm the fridge down. We don't know if that's the direction that they're going to go. Maybe they'll actually do a Walking with Dinosaurs style animated film where they're going to shoot they're going to shoot the backgrounds. We're going to have that realistic backdrop, and then we're going to have some CGI animals. Maybe they're going to do that. Or maybe, like I said before, they're going to bring in some human characters. They are going to portray the character, they're going to portray characters like Simba, Zazu, Nala, Scar, and all those characters, Maybe they're going to do that as well. But everybody calm the fridge down. We don't know what the direction is going to be. Honestly, overall, the only thing I could say about this is, for now, we just have to wait and see with what direction Disney is going to take it. Maybe they're going to do something that's more CGI heavy. Maybe they're going to do something that's more in line with the Broadway show. And maybe it's going to be a good idea maybe it's going to suck and they're going to heavily regret it. Who knows? We just need to wait and see. We don't even know if Disney would actually, if they would actually do this instead, or they would, maybe mid-production, they're going to just drop the ball and say that this project is canceled. We don't know. All we know is that this project has been announced. We know that Disney wants to do this with Jon Favreau as a musical. And I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. They announced it, and it can go in so many ways. So let's just be patient and see what Disney has to offer. So for our next story, I have some good news and some bad news as well. And this is going to be regarding a specific show. Now, let me just start this off with some bad news, and this is going to be for the people who watch Adventure Time. And I'm sorry to say this, guys, but apparently Adventure Time will come to a close. If I may go here on my source here on the Nerdist, there is actually a quote that they took from Penward. It says, "Adventure Time was a passion project for the people on the crew who poured their hearts into the art and stories. We tried to put into every episode something genuine and telling for our lives and making a show that was personal to us, and that has jokes too. I'm really happy that it connected with audiences for so long. It's a special thing, I think." But yeah, apparently Cartoon Network did announce that that they're not going to keep Adventure Time for long, and that there will be an end date. And this is where the good news comes in. Even though you might be sad to hear that Adventure Time is going to end, it won't end for a while, actually. It has stated that even though right now they're just finishing up Season 7, they are going to ultimately close off Adventure Time at Season 9 at the end of 2018. So for now, we still have 2 years worth to indulge on Adventure Time. And this is as well mentioning that there's going to be a lot of specials and some miniseries that's going to happen in between. So it's not just going to be the season, like the 2 seasons, and then it's going to be over. So you still have time to go and indulge in a lot of your Adventure Time needs. And hearing about this news, I would have to say that I feel like we're pretty close to the end of an era in general on TV animation. Because the thing is, when you look back at Adventure Time, it has been on TV for a while, apparently in 2010. And this was actually one of the series that actually started something big on TV. When you look back at the beginning of this decade, you think about shows like Adventure Time and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic and Phineas and Ferb, where people are starting to pay attention to animated series, and they notice that there's a bit of quality in there. It's actually enjoyable to watch. And then you start to get people watching these shows. And from there, because of what those series has done, and they actually gained a brand new audience, and even a large audience. It's not just for kids. Most of it is actually young adults and teens as well. What ended up happening is that they also brought in other shows that, like, basically what they started, it flourished into more series, including Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, The Loud House, The Adventures of Gumball, and all those shows. It really began this new age of TV animation where it's starting to grow into this big phenomenon. And when you look at the individual shows, you start to notice the different themes into them. Phineas and Ferb, they brought in the fun of the TV shows, the fun and the humor of what animated series used to have. My Little Pony, they brought in the phenomenon, the fan base, where you would get so many people so devoted to this TV show, And often, like, it taught us that the biggest fans, or the most popular demographic, are the people you would least expect to enjoy. Like, if you go back in time 20 or 30 years and you tell them that My Little Pony is going to be adored by 20 to 30-year-old men, they are going to think you're crazy and put you in the loony bin. And as for Adventure Time, it kind of began this trend, what Cartoon Network is starting to do, and that is to pretty much make stories a lot more interesting, and also make the art style. That's what they also brought in. For, like, when you look into Adventure Time, you could tell that the art style that they're going with is extremely simplistic, but also psychedelic as well. It's one of those shows where you kind of have to expect the unexpected, but it's not the kind that's like in Adult Swim, like Aqua Teen Hunger Force. This actually can think. This is actually a smart show. And on top of that, this is one of those animated series that actually began the trend of including social issues to discuss about pretty heavy subjects. This would be something that would ultimately carry onto Steven Universe, which is now very renowned to do that with its subjects of lesbianism and believing in yourself, family, and other stuff, including anxiety, depression, and all sorts of different social issues. They get into that very, very well. And this is the one that really did start it all. This is the one that, in a way, you could say that Cartoon Network, this actually helped Cartoon Network to be back on top in a way, because after the early 2000s, when the classic works of Cartoon Network was over, they kind of had a slum of TV shows that aren't necessarily beloved or aren't necessarily popular, but Adventure Time was the one that really lit things up, that really got things going. And this would also include the other elements, like bringing in other channels as well. They start to open the eyes for Disney. They start to open the eyes for Nickelodeon. They start to open the eyes for other channels like Hulu and stuff like that, It start to make aware for people that, there's actual substance onto TV shows. And now that Adventure Time is pretty much ending, and you never know if the other shows as well, like My Little Pony, is going to be over, or if there's going to be other stuff, or I don't know, like My Little Pony or Steven Universe or any of these shows are going to finish. But you could tell that with the end of Adventure Time, you could tell it's kind of the end of an era. And who knows, like, maybe they'll go pass the baton onto the next big show. Now, even though nowadays I heard that some people tell me that Adventure Time isn't as big as it used to, but still, like, Adventure Time is just one of those series that left such a huge impact onto TV animation, and you can actually tell. And I'm sure Cartoon Network will look at this with great joy and consider it one of their finest TV shows that they have ever produced. So, who knows? And honestly, I just made a realization, if My Little Pony Friendship is Magic would ever end, that would actually be the sign of a massive end of the era, because there are so many channels that are devoted to My Little Pony that once that is done, what are they going to do now, I hope that they do have a plan, but anyways, who knows. But yeah, apparently Adventure Time will officially be done at the end of 2018, even though there's still a lot of time. Let's see what's going to happen with the future of TV animation without him. Who knows? Now for our next story, this is another one in which that's coming from Disney, but we don't necessarily really know what it is. But this is actually coming from an animator named Dave Mullins, and apparently he was really excited to tell the people about the brand new project that he's working on. And this is actually an animated short that he is making his directorial debut with Lou. Now some of you might be wondering, what is Lou specifically? Well, the truth is, we don't necessarily know. The most that we've seen is actually Dave Mullins pretty much drawing this little sketch of a box of Lost and Found where they put emphasis on L, O, and U. And all we see is just a box of stuff and like just two little eyes popping out. And that's basically it. We don't know what the story is. We don't even know the release date. But a lot of speculations are going that apparently the movie will, the animated short is in production and we could be seeing it next year. However, the funny thing is that next year we are going to see two Pixar films like last year. We're going to get Cars 3 and Coco. Rather, if we know which one this one is going to take, if we're going to see it early with Cars or we're going to see it late with Coco, that we're completely unsure. But all we know so far is that Dave Mullins is going to be directing an animated short at Pixar called Lou. And literally, that's it. Now, by the way, if you guys don't know who Dave Mullins is, Dave Mullins is, sorry, for some reason it sounded like a tongue twister to me. But let me give you guys a little bit of a description. But Dave Mullins is actually a long-time animator at Pixar. And when I mean long time, I mean Monsters, Inc. long time. And he has climbed up the ranks to so many different departments. He was once an animator, and then he got up into a supervising animator, and then he ultimately became a directing animator. So he really climbed up at Pixar, and now he's going to test the waters a bit by being a director of an animated short with Lou, and then, like, who knows, maybe in the future we'll see an animated film directed by Dave Mullins. So this could actually be a name that we should probably look out for. Who knows? But with that said, the one thing I am actually curious about Lou is regarding what does this animated short have to offer for us? Now, if you don't know, with the animated shorts that we got from Pixar so far, is that the biggest emphasis is mostly a massive technical innovation regarding the animation. Now, if we look back into the ones that we've had before, we got the large-scale realistic backdrops of lava. Even though it's not necessarily beloved by the people, what they did visually with it is just fantastic. And then we jump over to The Good Dinosaur and we got, what was it? Sanjay's Super Team, that one. Yes. I absolutely adored it. We jumped from the worst Pixar animated short to the best Pixar, one of the worst Pixar animated shorts to one of the best Pixar animated shorts. Yeah, the character designs, it's just literally, oh good god, it is horrifying. But once we enter into Sanjay's dream world, that's when things become absolutely beautiful. And you could definitely tell of this Hindu-inspired, action-packed animated short. It is absolutely beautiful. The art style is absolutely innovative, and it's one of those extremely rare animated shorts that I look at it and I thought to myself, I would not mind seeing an entire 90-minute film of it. And then just recently with Finding Dory, we actually got Piper, and that one is another highly realistic animated feature, but this one emphasizes more on the cuteness, where Lava is more about the grand scale, where we see the details on such a large volcano. With Piper, it's more the small aspects. Like, this is to emphasize this really cute bird and this really cute crab, and mostly working together to conquer the bird's fear of water. That's pretty much the whole idea of it. And so, when we look into Lou, what direction are they going to give it? Who knows? All we got is just a box of Lost and Found, and apparently there's something in it. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be pretty innovative, maybe not. Well, and that's the whole thing. It's like the Lion King announcement, where this is just an announcement. All we know is who's going to be directing it and what it's called. And that's pretty much it. We don't know what it's about. We don't even know when is it going to be released. If it's going to be released either with with Cars 3, if it's going to be released with with Coco, or even like this could be delayed for a while and this could be released next to Toy Story 4. Like, it could take that long, but who knows? So far, we just got that, and let's see what it has in store in the future. Maybe it'll bring up something interesting. Now, for our next story, we're actually going into another live-action remake. Yeah, apparently this Lion King announcement kind of brought up this theme a little bit. But this time, however, it's going to be a spin-off TV show, and we are going to be looking upon Lupin III. And actually, you know, the funny thing is, if you guys may remember, a while back, I talked in the animation podcast regarding, the gravestone of Jigen? Or Jigen's gravestone. Either way, I talked about the Jigen movie. Apparently it was having a premiere, and they are going to make an announcement. I'm just wondering if this was it, because I mentioned about what could it be, and I'll admit, I was kind of close. It's not a spin-off movie, but we got a spin-off TV show of Inspector Zenigata. Apparently, this TV show has been greenlit by NTV and Wow Wow, I guess. NTV, Wow Wow, and Hulu Japan. So far, we don't know what the information is about the TV show. We don't know what the story is about. We don't know if any of the other characters would actually appear. We don't know if either Lupin or Jigen, they're going to come back. But the one thing that we do know is that this is a show that will star Inspector Zenigata. Now, let me go into my source here at Anime News Network, and let me read you a little bit of what we can know so far. Ryohei Suzuki will be playing Zenigata, a serious and obstinate detective who is usually dedicated to tracking down international thief Lupin III. He is part Metropolitan Police. He is part of the Metropolitan Police Department (CID) as well as Interpol. And then we also got former AKB48 idol Atsuko Maeda as Natsuki Sakuraba, a young detective at the Metropolitan Police Department (CID) Division 1 who values order and organization. Her father was a policeman who died in the line of duty, and she followed his path to become a policeman as well. And finally, we got a third character, Takahiro Miura as Shintaro Kunikida, a detective at the Metropolitan Police Department (CID) Division 1 who has not yet managed to find success in his career. He can't hold his liquor and easily cries, often thinking that he is not cut out to be a detective. When he and Zenigata move to solve the case on a mysterious explosion, he begins to learn many things from the stubborn detective. So, in a way, he seems like he could be the comic relief, but will include a lot of story arcs. Other than that, Taro Otani and Hitoshi Iwamoto are directing the series, with Masahiro Yamaura, Tetsuya Oishi, Naoya Takayama, Junpei Yamaoka, and others to pen the script. And so far, like I said before, like, these character descriptions, they seem to tell a little bit of what the show could be about. This one does mention that apparently, like, we are in the universe where Lupin III is still at large. Like, there could be a chance that we're going to see Zenigata chasing around Lupin III again. But, like, the most that we know about the story seems to be with the character of Kunikida. He seems to be the one that, like, at first you might expect him to be a comic relief. Like, he seems to be the wimp of the entire group. But, he seems to be the police officer in training, and he's the one that seems like we're going to learn a lot from him, and we're going to see, like, maybe in his point of view about the characteristics regarding Zenigata, or maybe his relationship with Sakuraba. Who knows? But yeah, so far this is the announcement of the series, and it's kind of funny how I knew for a fact that with the direction that they're taking with the Lupin III series, taking all these characters and turn them into, give them their own spin-offs, rather it be with Jigen and his own movie, or there's another one that I'm trying to think about. Who's Fujiko. There's also the spin-off series, the Lupin III, the woman called Fujiko Mine, and now we got Zenigata, of course. The only one that is missing, I forgot his name, but it's the samurai one. I forgot his, for God's sakes. Who is the samurai guy again? Hold on, let me do a little bit of research right over here. I apologize, everyone, that I didn't fully do my research. Let's see now. His name is Goemon. There we go. So yeah, like they've already done a spin-off for Fujiko and Jigen, and now that we're getting Inspector Zenigata, who knows when soon we will be hearing announcements regarding Goemon. So apparently that will be happening soon. But yeah, if you're in the Japan area and you are interested to see what this show is all about, so far the only thing that we know about it is that it will begin next year. And so last but not least, we finally have Matt's Pick of the Week. And for this week, I decided to look into a subject that not many people seem to care, or not many people seem to have watched, actually. But those who have seen it, they are actually very saddened and disappointed about this bit of news. And I am, of course, talking about last week's animated feature, Storks. Now, as you may recall, last week, I actually did help talk about Storks, and, it's a decent film. It's pretty good. It's enjoyable. It serves its purpose as a fun, cartoonish, comedic animated film. And I talked about the innovation, and probably the most memorable scene that is in there is with all the transformations with the wolves. But apparently that is not necessarily enough to really make this movie strong at the box office. Now, last week, during the box office weekend, Storks did not necessarily do well. In fact, it landed in second place with only $21.3 million as a starter. And with that said, apparently the Magnificent Seven was the only one that was able to beat it with $35 million. But going specifically onto Storks, it's actually pretty disappointing to see how an animated film started out with just $21 million. And even though there are several factors into it, but everybody's pretty much pointing out to the biggest reason why this movie ultimately became a flop, and that is Warner Brothers' marketing team, because they have done such little job to go and promote this movie, to really raise awareness about it. And it ended up with nobody pretty much talking about it. Nobody has, very few people have seen it. And even though it's not the worst box office result, it's not in the levels of Kubo and the Two Strings, The Wildlife, or Ratchet and Clank, it still is rather disappointing that a big animation studio feature like Storks would end up starting off really low with $21.3 million. And, with the notion that people are saying that it's actually Warner Brothers' fault for not marketing that much, let me take a moment to mention about this regarding Warner Brothers' marketing team. They're actually really, really good. They do their job so well. They're capable of making some pretty good quality trailers, pretty good marketing campaigns to really grab our interests. In fact, if you look back earlier this year with movies such as Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, or Suicide Squad, they have done such a great job to really grab audiences' intrigue until the movie was released, and then everything crumbles over there. But that's more the movie's fault than it is for the marketing. So you could definitely tell how Warner Brothers would give it their all in terms of the marketing and really push it out there to really give awareness to their films. However, there is actually one giant flaw with their marketing. The problem with it is that Warner Brothers is very selective when it comes to which movies that they really want to go out and market. And usually they pick the ones from big franchises. When you look at this year alone, the movies that got the most marketing from Warner Brothers are either, like I said before, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Suicide Squad, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and even the Lego Batman movie has a lot more marketing. In fact, it's funny how, like, with the Lego Batman movie, that actually got a lot more marketing and, like, it grabbed a lot more attention than Storks. And that's mostly the biggest problem, is because Warner Brothers was mostly putting its focus on trying to sell movies like Suicide Squad and Fantastic Beasts, and pretty much left Storks on the wayside, because let's be honest, it's an original animated feature and they don't necessarily know how to advertise it. In fact, it's not necessarily their animated feature. Unlike the other ones like Happy Feet or the Lego movie that was done by Animal Logic, this one was done at Sony Pictures Imageworks. This might as well put they might as well put the label of Sony Pictures or even Sony Pictures Animation, especially considering how it coincides with the cartoony style that Sony is desperately trying to do. You know, like, it might as well be a film by Sony than it is a Warner Brothers film, so they don't necessarily put any interest. That, and also, it's not necessarily easy to market a film that not a lot of people know what to do with it. It's an original idea regarding Storks, and they don't necessarily know how to sell something with an original idea. When you look back at the other stuff, like the Lego movies or the DC films or even the Harry Potter ones, they know what to do with it because they know what the they know what the films are. They know the style that they're going for. So they know how to go and market that. With Storks, they have no idea. This is a new thing. Like, not only is it a new thing for us, it's also a new thing for them. So they're pretty much unsure what to do with it. And ultimately, some could argue that Storks ended up with the Iron Giant treatment and just left off on the wayside. Now, of course, at the same time, a lot of people could debate regarding other factors as well. You know, there could be plenty of other situations onto why Storks didn't necessarily do as well as a lot of people expected. Some could say it's mostly because of what critics said about it. They said that, you know, they say that it's okay. There's not necessarily a rush to go see this movie. It's not one of those must-see animated films in the veins of, like, Zootopia or The Secret Life of Pets. So people don't necessarily have any rush with it, and especially how this year we got the Angry Birds movie, which you could argue that there are a lot of parallels between Storks and Angry Birds. Like, you know, it would be kind of like repeating themselves. Like, people have already seen Angry Birds, so they don't necessarily need Storks. And that, at the same time, there's also the fact that this was released in September. Now, September and October is usually considered kind of a dead month to the box office, onto theaters. It might as well be next to January in a way. It's like, we're at the point that everybody's going back to school. We're no longer, like, most of the movies that have been released in the summer, that's already out. We have seen them. We don't necessarily need to go and watch any more movies anymore, so now let's put our focus onto studies. So that's pretty much why. There's no, like I said before, there's no real rush to go see a movie like this, and it's not necessarily a top priority. People just want to go and, like, focus on what they have right now, like school and work and whatever they got, instead of actually going out to see a movie like Storks. But again, those factors do play as well, but I definitely do agree that marketing is probably the biggest factor to Storks' downfall. Funny enough, I have my source here on Cartoon Brew. It actually mentioned that usually during September, Sony Pictures Animation would do a better job than that. even though they don't necessarily do well, like the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs films, they only make around, like, they start out with just like around $30 million. And even the Hotel Transylvania films, they start out with like either 42 or 48 million. And like I said before, September is really a dead month, and the Hotel Transylvania films are actually the highest grossing features that were released in September. So that really does say something when a deadbeat movie made by people who have no idea what they're doing is able to like top at the box office right there. And but yeah, the thing is that what Sony does better than Warner Brothers in this case is actually the marketing. Now, the quality of the marketing itself is highly debatable, especially with the release of Ghostbusters and the entire controversy that happened there. The quality itself, you can debate rather if it's good or bad, but at the very least, we can agree that one thing that Sony does better than Warner Brothers in terms of marketing is that they give equal share. They try to sell each movie with what they have. That's why people last year, they paid more, like they had more attention regarding Hotel Transylvania 2 than this year, than what people have more, like when people didn't really got any attention towards Storks. That's the thing. Sony knows that they got all these movies and they try to market them equally instead of Warner Brothers trying to just solely market their big movies while the other ones that they're going to release, well, they're just left off on the wayside. And that's pretty much the biggest factor to why Storks didn't do necessarily well at the box office. Now, with that said, does that mean that Storks is going to be a flop at the box office? Is Warner Brothers going to lose money out of it? Is it going to discourage Warner Brothers to make more original animated films like Storks and instead just like release almost purely nothing but Lego movies? Well, I don't think so. Well, I don't know. Honestly, maybe yes, maybe no, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, the thing is with Storks is that it is relatively cheaper than most animated films. Apparently, the budget is $70 million, and considering that there isn't a lot of marketing, maybe we'll have to add in I don't know, maybe like I would say on average 50 million. So that would be like 120 million. Like if like here's the thing. If Storks would be able to get $250 million worldwide at the box office, I think at that point they could break even. Like maybe they'll be safe on that ground, but it's not going to make an impact. At this point, I highly doubt that we're going to see a Storks 2, or if they're going to make more different Storks projects, or like merchandising or animated shorts. I highly doubt that we're going to see that. All we got so far is just Storks, and that's pretty much going to be it due to the poor box office. So at this point, we'll just have to wait and see if Warner Brothers is going to consider this a flop or a hit. Like, it can go either way. On one hand, it looks like it might lose some money considering that it didn't make a lot, but on the other hand, it is still a relatively cheaper animated feature than most major animation studios that they would spend, even more cheaper than like what Blue Sky or even Sony would spend on their animated films, both in terms of the production itself and onto the marketing. And even with this one, we could definitely expect that the marketing was not really spent heavily. It's not like in it's not like it's not like the Angry Birds movie. Actually, the Angry Birds movie would be the perfect contrast to this situation, because if you guys remember earlier this year, Sony actually did a pretty good job trying to advertise the Angry Birds movie, and they actually did release the statistics that apparently the Angry Birds movie did the budget apparently was $80 million for the production, and that's on Sony's part, and Nvidia actually spent a total of what was it? Oh yeah, they spent $100 million on the budget, so they really tried to go heavy on the marketing, and it actually worked out. You know, the Angry Birds, it actually turned out to be a modest hit. It ended up with more than $350 million, and now there's going to be a sequel underway. With Storks, on the other hand, it's not really going well, and I highly doubt if it's gonna go well in the future for the following weeks. I mean, yeah, sure, the next animated feature won't be out until November, but still. I mean, the thing is with Storks is that, like, it's in that dead zone month of September and October, the time when people don't necessarily care to go and watch movies. That's it. So, I don't know, it could probably go either way regarding with how Storks is going to do. Maybe it'll be a hit, maybe it'll be a flop, but we'll just have to wait and see. And with that, that is all that I got for this week, so thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Animation Podcast. You can find more of my work on film-book.com. All you have to do is just search for Mathieu Brunet or the Animation Podcast. You can also find me on Twitter at Animat505. If you have listened to this podcast on iTunes or any other podcast service, do you mind just going out there and rate and review this episode? That would be lovely, and that would actually help us so much. And if you are listening to this podcast on YouTube, hit that little like button on our video and leave us a little comment on your thoughts on the news this week. Tune in next week for the latest episode of the Animation Podcast and all things animation. Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you guys so much for 50 wonderful episodes. And until next week, see you later, dudes!